was, and I was not too keen on the idea of changing schools. I really was not. And sure enough, I fought myself, and so here we start at Riverheads, 1962, and it's not the 50th anniversary, contrary to what you may be hearing. I'm sorry, it's 49 years any way you look at it. But anyway, it was just like a shakedown cruise. You went in there, and I mean, they were still cleaning up from construction. And one of the things, and of course, this changed the second year I was there. In my junior year, I felt very intimidated because we inherited the Spotswood High School faculty, along with the majority of the students were from Spotswood. So I kind of felt, you know, heck, you know, I was somewhat of a big fish in a big pond when I was at Wilson, and here, and so things were just not going well. I mean, we tried, and there were some excellent faculty members from Spotswood, and don't ask me to name them, but there were. Many of them aren't with us anymore. But I will relate to you about Mr. Bill Young. Do any of you here know Bill Young? You do, don't you? Bill and Dorothy? Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were the Shamrock Orchards, right? And Bill was a guidance counselor, and his forte, I mean, when he was one of the Wilson people that came along, you know, so I can't pick on Spotswood there. And he was a biology teacher and guidance counselor. So they stuck him with the chemistry class. And I was in chemistry because I was going to college, and I wanted to get these academic courses, taken care of. Well, he just did not care for it. In fact, some of the students could come up with, and we had no lab materials or supplies to work with here. We had this new laboratory to work in. And finally, I told Nancy this one too. We got our thistle tubes in, 7 thistle tubes in April. Just about 3 weeks before school was over. And here we had nothing to work with. And he gave us about a 20-minute talk about how expensive these thistle tubes were, and to take extra care with them, because we had to share them, our lab partners at the tables. And before he could hand out the first one, he dropped every one of them, but 2 did survive. but that was the experience at Riverheads. But the second year, things had calmed down quite a bit. In fact, one of the best English teachers I've ever had, and great preparation for college, was a Mrs. Belleville, and her husband was in law school at W&L, and she, of course, she had to do something. And she'd graduated at Hollins not too long before, and she was an English major, and she brought a great deal of enthusiasm to her classroom. Also, I can mention Clarence Eddy, who was my French instructor, and he had just been to Montpellier in France and gotten his certificate, and he was quite enthusiastic, and I felt that things were coming around by the time I graduated. I had made friends with many of the Spotswood people, and it went very well. And while I mentioned Clarence Eddy, they live down here where Ken Wilkerson lives now, in the house down here, and his wife was my piano teacher for a year. I had piano in Middlebrook Elementary for 2 years with Sarah Ann before she upped and quit without letting anybody know. And my brother, who is an accomplished musician now, had started taking music from Mrs. Eddy. And so why not, if I'm with Phil, taking him for his lessons. And I really did benefit a lot from that year with her. I don't know if many of you know this or not, but Mrs. Eddy was a classical trained pianist. In fact, she would have gone on to bigger and greater things, I'm sure. But a freak accident on a train, I don't know if it was a porter or a conductor or something, if you've heard this story or not, but anyway, they closed the door on her small finger, and that rendered, any, career. But she was a marvelous teacher.